tape, stop me. 4 takes, that's true. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First day, got me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into First Take on a Feel Good Friday. And look who is here. Darren Woodson is in the building. Always a pleasure, Darren.
Hold on.
I already hear him.
Little bird.
Hold
on. What the hell is he doing here this early? Why is Darren Woodson, a cowboy, starting off First Take? Security? Where's security? Where's security?
Hey, Max, I'm sitting in your seat, too, Max.
Oh, Lord.
Appreciate you, Max.
See that?
Well,
listen, when the cat's away.
Yeah, we know, when the cat's away. How are you guys feeling this morning? You're already feisty, I can tell.
I was all right until I saw him, a cowboy, starting off the show.
I know Stephen A. and I are about to butt heads on a bunch of stuff, so I can't wait.
Okay, cool. Darren, do you want to start the show?
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll start it then, because Darren wants to. There is a youth movement in New York. The Jets add Brandon Marshall to the list of veteran players that will be released. First reported by Newsday, then confirmed by our Adam Schefter. So a source close to Marshall told Schefter that the Jets offered a contract extension with no pay cut, but they eventually decided to part ways and not to trade him. So Marshall joins Revis, Nick Mangold, and Nick Folk as offseason salary cap casualties for the Jets. The move can't become official until the new league business year, which starts March 9th, right around the corner at 4 p.m. Eastern. Hall of Famer Bill Polian with a hot take on Gang Green.
Don't forget, next year in the draft is a good quarterback year. Shall we say that maybe they're reloading with the idea that this year may not be a terrific year record-wise.
Are they doing a Sixers thing and tanking, Bill?
Well, I don't want to say that. But we saw the Browns do it with no repercussions, by the way. So who knows? Maybe it's an objective. It's hard for me to believe in New York. And the moves they've made thus far have been justified without question.
And you believe the Browns tanked this year, then?
There's no question about it. They said it. They didn't care about the one-loss record. They said it, and there were no repercussions.
So the Jets are clearly getting younger and save $43.4 million against the cap. But Stephen A., are they making the right moves?
Well, listen, I think they're making the right moves in terms of Brandon Marshall because, again, if you don't have a quarterback, you got a problem. Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously had a very, very good year the year before last. This year, in part due to how the Jets handled things, particularly in training camp and what a holdout they allowed them to be and how they left so many things dangling, really disrupted their rhythm, their flow, their momentum. And as a result, that, as far as I'm concerned, that relatively sabotaged their season. Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in late in training camp. Ultimately, he takes a while to get going. You look at Eric Decker, he goes down. Matt Forte wasn't the running back that you wanted him to be. The offensive line wasn't what it used to be, particularly with the retirement of the Brickenshaw Ferguson. So you take all of those things into account. Remember, Nick Mangold is not going to be back now. But you got to take into account all of those things that were transpiring. So ultimately, it led to acrimony. Remember, your quarterback who was vying for the starting job got his jaw broken because he stupidly got in the face of a 250-pound linebacker he owed money to, if you can believe that. I'm talking about Geno Smith here, obviously. All of those things taken into consideration, they never really had a chance to have a successful season. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and then Darrelle Revis didn't want to be there any longer and played like it. As a result, they've let him go. Now they've let Brandon Marshall go. No doubt they'll probably let David Harris go. They'll probably try to trade Sheldon Richardson as well. You take all of those things into consideration. They clearly seem to be conceding next season. I can't believe I'm saying that in New York. I certainly don't support it, but I do like Bowles. I do like McCagnon. I know that they have some kind of a vision, and I know that they feel somewhat betrayed by the personnel they had in that locker room last year. So to return with all of those bodies intact, I'm not sure I would trust them any more than McCagnon or Bowles or Woody Johnson appears to be trusting them right now. And as a result, with Brandon Marshall, 32 years of age, coming off his worst season, only 59 receptions, targeted 128 times, and still putting up those paltry numbers, that wasn't about his talent because we all know he could play. It was about what he was playing with. He's never been in the playoffs before. He's 32 years of age. He's not going to be an asset to that locker room because he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuilding project. So I think it was the right decision to let him go.
Of course it was the right decision to let him go, and I do support it. Unlike you, Stephen A., the Jets, I don't care, the New York, wherever they're from, as Bill Polian said, Cleveland, it doesn't matter. When it's time to tear it down and start again, do it. Look, Branch Rickey, who might be the greatest GM of all time, helped integrate the major leagues by bringing Jackie Robinson to the Dodgers in 1947. He invented the farm system in Major League Baseball, and he said, trade him a year too early instead of a year too late. And when Branch Rickey was in Pittsburgh, and Ralph Kiner, the greatest slugger in the history of the National League at that point, had just led the league in home runs, but he was getting older, came to Branch Rickey, wanted a raise. Branch Rickey said, we finished in last place with you. We can finish in last place without you. Forget your raise, and then traded him. Why do the Jets need Brandon Marshall right now? They are so far from being good. You brought it up, Stephen A., early on in your comment. They don't have a quarterback, and they don't have a whole bunch of stuff. And just by getting rid of Revis and Mangold and now Brandon Marshall, they save over $40 million against the cap. This was a no-brainer for all those reasons, but there's even more to it than that. Darren, I'm sure you can speak to this. When you talk about a locker room, veterans, particularly those who are dying to get to the playoffs, who make a lot of money on a team they know aren't going anywhere, how does that go over? Do they come to work happy every day? It doesn't go over. For so many reasons, this move had to be made.
I think you're right on it. I think when you look at Nick Mangold and you look at Darrelle Revis and Brandon Marshall and you see what that locker room has been like in the last 2 years, it's been complete dysfunction without winning. And when you have dysfunction in the locker room and you can't win games, there's going to be problems. Listen, if the one guy that I feel sorry for is Todd Bowles. He has 2 years left on his contract. And now you're looking at losing Darrelle Revis, Nick Mangold, Brandon Marshall. That's 20 Pro Bowls altogether in those 3 guys. And now you're talking about a young quarterback with no experience, which either be Hackenberg or Bryce Petty. You're talking about a bad locker room, of course. And you're guaranteed 2 losses in the season because you got to play the New England Patriots twice. I feel sorry for what's that conversation like with Todd Bowles and Woody Johnson? This is absolutely a rebuilding process. They have to go through this. I just don't think Todd Bowles finds his way above water at the end of this thing. They're going to lose in a market, in the New York market, which is really on their football teams. I mean, that's as volatile a market as there can be. Todd Bowles will not last through this process.
Well, Darren, it's interesting that you bring that up because you're absolutely right on the money. But here's where it gets a bit worse. At the tail end of the season, or near the tail end of the season, you had New York folks in media calling for Todd Bowles' jobs. Yep. And even though I disagreed with it, it was clear their arguments were justified from the standpoint that they were making the argument that the team had given up on him. Anytime you have players who flagrantly go about the business of tanking on you, giving up on you, not giving maximum effort, knowing that it's on your watch, that's the ultimate indictment against the head coach. So for the New York Jets to follow that up by essentially, just cleaning house, that doesn't put Todd Bowles in a good position at all. I don't like that because even though, again, I like him and I want him to stay, I also like McCagnon a lot. But it shouldn't be one without the other. Woody Johnson shouldn't be giving them the okay to essentially tank it, but then they do so and the head coach suffers without the GM. They've been in it together. They stay together or they go together because it's not one person's fault in this situation.
Stephen A. and Darren, you guys think Bowles is more likely to get the axe now? If anything, to me, he may wind up getting the axe. Sure, it looks that way. But it would be less likely given the fact that, look, last season you were trying to be good, and you were no good. What's the difference between winning 6 games or winning 4 games?
All right,
the difference
that's
is
enough,
if you win 4 games...
You got to turn in your New York card. You got to turn in your New York. I can't believe you're asking that question. New York City? I thought you were from New York. You better turn in your New York citizenry.
Giants fan.
I'm talking about the city of New York. I'm talking about the culture of New York. You asking that question? It seemed likely to me that he was survived. In New York? Are you from the city?
No.
Or are you not?
I am, and he is likely to not survive this. But if you want to say, do his odds just get better or worse, when you're supposedly trying to be good, you got cap problems because you're spending money on veteran star players and you stink. Coach is more likely to go than when the whole organization and the whole world knows you are tanking because you're tearing it all down. That's what's happening.
I get what you're saying.
I get what you're saying, Max, but in the end, it's going to come down to wins and losses, period. I don't care what Woody Johnson's telling Todd Bowles right now. The New York media is going to come down on him with all these losses. If you want to call it the reset button, and start all over again, we can call it what we want to call it, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to wins and losses through this rebuilding process, and Todd Bowles is going to be the fall guy in this process.
And unfortunately, the one that'll suffer. As far as Jets fans, though, they're used to having patience, and they're going to have to continue to do that. So Brandon Marshall isn't the only Pro Bowl receiver on the market. The Bears declined to use the franchise tag again on Marshall's former teammate Alshon Jeffrey, which will make him a free agent on March 9th. Max Kellerman, who would you rather have, Jeffrey or Marshall?
Alshon is clearly the choice here. Look, they're both big, fearless, go across the middle, great in 50-50 situations down the field. They're similar in that respect. If you have a speed guy on one side of the field, you got Alshon Jeffrey on the other side of the field, boy, you're set up nicely for like the next 5 years, right? At which point Alshon Jeffrey will be the age Brandon Marshall is now. If you have two similar players, even if you like Marshall more, but they're similar, and one guy is 5 years younger, who are you going to take? Particularly when, guys, we know how it's going to work. There will be a bidding war for these guys' services because it may not be the most intense of all time, but there will be multiple teams offering money for these guys because whatever the number said last year, we have eyeballs. We know they're both good. Imagine Brandon Marshall up in New England. I mean, so they can both play. And when you have that situation, the more years you can give a guy, the better it is for your cap situation because you can prorate that money out. It's a bonus. It's really the guarantee. So who do you want? The guy with a longer future, where it's less of a cap hit, or the guy with a shorter future, if you have to pay him the same, where it's more of a cap hit because he's not going to be as good for as many years? Give me the guy, if they're similar, give me the guy 5 years younger, no brainer.
No, I respectfully disagree, and here's for a couple of reasons. Number one, both of these guys are going to be looking to be in a better situation. Remember, Alshon Jeffries, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since Brandon Marshall returned. Over the last 3 years, he's in Chicago. They've won 5, 6, and 3 games last year, okay? So you're talking about 5, 6, and 3 games. He's won 14 games in 3 years, whereas the New England Patriots just won 14 and 2. They're both going to be looking to be in big-time situations where they can position themselves for titles. When we look at it from that perspective, it's not about the longevity picture, all right? It's not about the marathon. It's about the sprint. I'm going to go with the experience of Brandon Marshall. I like Brandon Marshall's experience. I think he's a better receiver. More importantly, I think he wants it a little bit more, whereas Alshon Jeffrey wants the money. I'm not going to hold too much against Alshon Jeffrey because obviously Jay Cutler was his quarterback. And when Jay Cutler's your quarterback, my sympathies and condolences to you. He never had a chance anyway, so I do get that point. But in the end, I still have to look at Brandon Marshall from that perspective. Not to mention the fact that Alshon Jeffrey has missed about 11 games the last 2 years. Durability is a question mark when it comes to him. That want it mentality, yeah, he says the right things, but I'm not sure I see that in his game. I'm not questioning his skills. I am questioning at times his desire, but I'm not sure about it because, again, if I were playing with Jay Cutler, I'd be depressed half the time my damn self. So I can't hold it against him too much, but I would just say to you, I'm still going with the experience that is Brandon Marshall over the younger Alshon Jeffrey, because longevity doesn't really matter.
I'm taking Brandon Marshall on the fact of this. If it's a short-term fix, I'm looking for Brandon Marshall, a team that's on the cusp of winning a championship. You bring in Brandon Marshall, but he has to be surrounded by veteran players and a good locker room that can handle the type of mentality you have with Brandon Marshall. So I'm going with him on a short-term basis. The jury's still out for me on Alshon Jeffries. I don't think it's all about the winning for him. It's about the money. I think you were right on the point. It's about the money, getting paid, getting in a better situation to take care of his family. But in the end, he is, at 27 years old? He's been banged up the last couple of years. He's a guy that doesn't create separation. I mean, he makes good plays as far as going up and getting the ball, but he doesn't create at the line of scrimmage as far as separation. So you're going to have a quarterback that can throw in spots to him. There's a lot more work and more upside when you have to deal with Alshon Jeffries. And to me, he's never proven to be a number one guy. I mean, you know what you have in Brandon Marshall. You have a number one guy, but I don't know if Alshon has been that guy who can carry his team as a number one receiver.
When they were together, sometimes it was hard to tell who was better. And by the way,
Brandon Marshall was getting doubled. I mean, of course you're going to go.
That's right. Brandon Marshall was clearly better.
Poor Brandon Marshall, the best quarterback he ever played with was Jay Cutler, Stephen A. Look, if you're talking about who would you put them both on a scale, who weighs more in terms of value? Yes, I agree, Brandon Marshall, but there's more to it than that. If a team like New England got Brandon Marshall on the right kind of deal, that's one thing. But assuming there will be bidding for them, assuming we're talking about sizable contracts here over years and the attendant kind of cap issue that comes with that, I believe that Alshon Jeffrey is not only the better deal, but over the next 5 years has a very good chance to be the better player. And at the end of that 5-year period, again, he'll be Brandon Marshall's age now.
Whatever receiver you're thinking about getting, it ain't for the next 5 years. It's for the next 2 to 3 years max. That's number one. And number two, let me tell you something, Max, right now. You could say Jay Cutler was the best quarterback Brandon Marshall ever played with, but not this past season. The season before last, Ryan Fitzpatrick was better than Jay Cutler has ever been as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think
2 years
so.
ago.
I mean,
2 years ago.
They're comparable.
2 years ago, yes.
2 years ago, Fitzpatrick was okay. He was like league average, maybe.
And that's,
when he needed
and that's
the
a
most, he
hell
had
of a lot.
bad game,
You're not getting my point. That's a hell of a lot better than Jay Cutler's ever been. That's my
Jay
point.
Cutler had a couple
okay, is a
seasons
hell of a
at
lot
least
better.
that good. At
than
least
Jay
that
Stephen
good.
A. Stephen A. I want to spin it
Yes.
forward. I know these guys want to go to contenders, but we have teams like the Bucks, Rams, Titans, Niners. They're all in need of a receiver. What do you think would be good potential fits for a Brandon Marshall or an Alshon Jeffrey?
I like an Alshon Jeffrey in Tampa because there are no title expectations. You know, with Evans and the crew, with Jameis Winston throwing the football, having an additional weapon at wideout, somebody that has the long term, that you got a long term view with. I like that possibility for him. With Brandon Marshall, I'm thinking Pittsburgh. I'm thinking New England. I'm thinking spots like that, to be quite honest with you. Even Oakland, if he could find his way there. I like a Brandon Marshall in a situation like that.
I can see Brandon Marshall, again, a veteran team that's on the cusp, the New England Patriots type of team. Hey, listen, even here we go with the Cowboys, but even a number 2 position with the Cowboys, I mean, you can find some spots for Brandon Marshall, but he's not going to go to a team where it's in a rebuilding process. The kid wants to win a Super Bowl. He hasn't even won a playoff game. So he's trying to, don't start. But anyways, he's trying to get something.
Oh, and he's against the Cowboys.
Darren
Woodson. Yourself up. Teed it up.
Darren Woodson just sat up there and said he's never had a playoff. He's never won a playoff game, but he needs to go to the Cowboys.
I teed that one up. I teed that one up for you.
That's funny.
But when you look at Brandon Marshall, this is a guy that he hasn't won a playoff game. He's trying to get to the ultimate.
Then he don't need to go to Dallas.
But
he don't need to go to Dallas.
I'm not even saying just Dallas. I'm saying there's teams that are out there that deserve that number 2 guy that he can be that guy. But again, Alshon Jeffries is going to be about the money. I see a team like the Tennessee Titans are a team that run the ball and they need a deep threat at the end. I think
good offensive
Rams,
line.
Niners, there's a lot of them.
I will say this. Let me be very, very clear. I'm good with my man Brandon Marshall. That's my brother. Just spoke to him a few minutes ago. If he goes to the Dallas Cowboys, I'll never speak to him again. I'll never speak to him again. I will never speak to him again.
He has that ring on his finger. You'll be speaking to him.
Ring. What? A wedding ring? He's married already. He don't need a. You damn sure ain't talking about no championship ring. You can stop that nonsense.
I need to bring my championship rings in here.
Yeah, bring it from the 90s. Bring it from the 90s. I don't have no problem with the 90s. Bring it from the 90s.
How many decades do we have to go back?
There we go.
You guys are all haters.
My hairline was here, Darren. My hairline was
here.
here.
All up together? Three. Yeah.
3.
On that note, Darren, thank you so much for being with us. Always fun. Appreciate the insight.
Get out of here, you cowboy.
So disrespectful.
Get out of here.
The Warriors did something last night they haven't done since 2015. Find out what that is. Coming up next, and Le'Veon Bell is maybe the best running back in the
If you lucky, first take, stop me. 4 takes, that's true. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, got me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into First Take on a Feel Good Friday. And look who is here. Darren Woodson is in the building. Always a pleasure, Darren.
Hold on.
I already hear him.
Little bird.
Hold on. What the hell is he doing here this early? Why is Darren Woodson, a cowboy, starting off First Take? Security? Where's security? Where's security?
Hey, Max, I'm sitting in your seat too, Max.
Oh,
Appreciate
Lord.
you, Max.
See that?
Well,
listen, when the cat's away.
Going on?
Yeah. We know when the cat's away. How are you guys feeling this morning? You're already feisty, I can tell.
I was all right until I saw him, a cowboy, starting off the show.
I know Stephen A. and I are about to butt heads on a bunch of stuff, so I can't wait.
Okay, cool. Darren, do you want to start the show?
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll start it then, because Darren wants to. There is a youth movement in New York. The Jets add Brandon Marshall to the list of veteran players that will be released. First reported by Newsday, then confirmed by our Adam Schefter. So a source close to Marshall told Schefter that the Jets offered a contract extension with no pay cut, but they eventually decided to part ways and not to trade him. So Marshall joins Revis, Nick Mangold, and Nick Folk as offseason salary cap casualties for the Jets. The move can't become official until the new league business year, which starts March 9th, right around the corner at 4 p.m. Eastern. Hall of Famer Bill Polian with a hot take on Game Green.
Don't forget, next year in the draft is a good quarterback year. Shall we say that maybe they're